They thought we were bluffing. We told them, in council chambers, on transmission bands, through the last broken breath of our ambassadors, that Earth was holding back, that humanity was still choosing restraint, still giving the galaxy a chance to pull its claws back and walk away. But restraint only goes so far. Even a wolf can lie still, until it smells blood. It started with the blockade over Mars. The galactic conglomerate called it a preventative measure. Said Earth's recent energy output spikes were of concern. That our weapon factories had exceeded their threshold of acceptable peacetime development. Translation? They were scared. Not of what we were doing, but of what they didn't understand. Because for 2 decades, Earth had gone quiet. No more skirmishes, no more warlords. Not a single pirate flagged under human banners. It wasn't peace, it was preparation. I remember the day they sent the first message. I was stationed aboard the Hezekiah, a recycled hauler-turned-scout frigate running recon lines off Saturn's orbit. Boring duty. No real action. I was 6 weeks into a dry spell and reading old war logs on my downtime, just to keep myself sharp. Then came the transmission. It wasn't addressed to the fleet. It was broadcast to the entire EarthNet. Public, unfiltered, arrogant as hell. The conglomerate high speaker, voice calm, like we were a child needing discipline. Due to Earth's refusal to comply with the Energy Armament Treaty and continued militarization of its orbital stations, the conglomerate will deploy a stabilization fleet around Earth's system effective immediately. This is not an act of aggression, but of preservation. Comply, and you will be spared. Spared. That single word ignited something deep in every human that still had fire in them. We didn't forget history. Not Earth's history, not the galaxy's. The conglomerate didn't spare people. They processed them. Colonized minds, repurposed tech, wiped out bloodlines and rewrote memory streams. Always under the name of peace. We'd seen what they did to the Venari colonies, how they reduced an entire sentient race to factory drones in 10 years flat, took away their names, their ability to reproduce freely, called them streamlined. And now Earth was next? We tried to speak. President Lennox gave a formal response, diplomatic, respectful, full of the kind of words that meant, "This is your final chance to back off." She warned them clearly, "We are not defenseless. Our silence has never been weakness. You will not like what happens next." They laughed. Literally. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in laughter, like we were children pretending to be monsters. They forgot who the monsters really were. 3 days after the blockade began, they boarded Lunar Station Theta, claimed it was for inspection. They took 47 humans hostage, tortured 5 of them for access codes to Earth's defense grid, streamed it live on the outer net, said it was a warning. That's when everything changed. That's when Earth activated protocol blackout. Suddenly, every satellite went dark. EarthNet vanished from the grid. No transmissions, no diplomacy, no warning. The entire planet went completely silent for 12 hours. I was still out on Hezekiah, watching the stars, wondering what was coming. And then we saw it. The first human dreadnought, the Widowmaker, breached fold space 300 clicks off Jupiter's belt. It didn't announce itself. It didn't hail the blockade ships. It just opened fire. And in under 5 minutes, 9 conglomerate vessels, Class 3 battlecruisers, were torn to scrap. Not just destroyed, dismantled. Precision shots, internal explosions. One had its reactor melted from the inside out. Tech we hadn't even revealed to our own allies yet. That's when the truth began to leak out. Earth had never stopped building weapons. We'd just stopped sharing them. And what we'd built in secret was far beyond what they thought possible. The Widowmaker wasn't alone. Within 2 days, over 47 new vessels, none of them in the Galactic Registry, emerged from deep fold. They didn't carry flags. They didn't speak. They only had one directive: retaliate, without mercy. They didn't even scream. That's what stuck with me most when the Widowmaker tore through the conglomerate fleet. No distress calls, no orders, no emergency chatter on the open bands, just a cold, vast silence, and the sound of our revenge etched into burning hulls and broken steel. They were arrogant to the end, too shocked to panic, too slow to fight. I stood at the Hezekiah's viewing deck as debris scattered across Jupiter's orbit like cosmic ash. Most of the crew was too stunned to speak. Our captain, old Commander Brandt, war-torn and half-drunk on recycled oxygen, just lit a cigarette and muttered, "Took us long enough." He wasn't wrong. For years we swallowed pride and wore masks, while the conglomerate pressed closer. We signed their treaties with one hand and built war engines with the other. Let them believe we were broken, that the chaos of our past had left us docile, tamed, predictable. But we never forgot. Not the invasion of Phobos, not the sterilization of the Europa colonies, not the way they treated Earth like a fragile little experiment too primitive to manage its own fate. So we smiled. We nodded. And we built hell. The Widowmaker was only the opening act. What came next wasn't a war. It was a goddamn reckoning. Earth's silence ended the moment our new fleet entered visible space. No warning shots, no diplomacy, just destruction delivered with surgical cruelty. A day later, I got my reassignment order. My name lit up in red on the secure channel. Enlistment reactivation. Protocol Vantage. Vantage was a ghost program, the kind that didn't officially exist. Rumor was it was Earth's final option, a Black Ops offensive crewed by soldiers too scarred or too lethal for the polished fleets, which meant I was finally back where I belonged. The dropship that picked me up was a quiet beast, matte black, 0 insignia, crew of 5 and no questions. Inside, I met Commander Harlan. He didn't bother shaking hands, didn't say welcome, just handed me a neural feed strip and said, "Plug in, learn fast. We move at 0500. The brief was cold and efficient. Target, GCV Ardent Valor, a conglomerate diplomatic carrier turned tactical command post. Location, orbiting Virex 9, a mid-core world with minor human colonies. Objective, eliminate the carrier, cripple morale. Deliver Earth's new message. Humanity no longer negotiates. That was it. No backup, no fleet. Just our drop team and a single prototype war rig. The Ghost Frame Mickey 2, an exosuit built from stolen conglomerate tech. Faster, stronger, smarter than anything on the field. I'd only seen specs years ago. Now I was expected to wear it. We landed on Virex 9 under the cover of its magnetic storms. The locals had been pacified a month earlier. Conglomerate peacekeepers had sterilized half a settlement after a child threw a rock at a drone. No one reported it. No one cried. They were too scared. That changed when we arrived. Commander Harlan dropped first. The ghost frame made him a silhouette of death, gliding through the storm with blue plasma coiling at his fists. We didn't announce ourselves, didn't raise flags. We let the conglomerate base patrol see us just long enough to recognize what we were, then we erased them. 10 seconds. That's how long it took to neutralize a fully armed outpost. No survivors, no alerts. We moved fast, up the ridge, through the thinning air, toward the GCV Ardent Valor moored like a god over the planet. Their confidence made them lazy. They thought no one would dare assault a command carrier directly. That's what made them vulnerable. We used stolen codes to breach the perimeter, another gift from Earth's long silence. Our tech had evolved beyond what they expected. Our systems learned their patterns, predicted them. Inside the Valor, it was clinical. White corridors, soft lights, peaceful tones, like it was a hospital. not a warship, but I could smell the blood underneath, the arrogance in the walls. Every console we passed carried logs of detainment transfers. Hundreds of humans rerouted from colony zones to experimental holding cells. They weren't prisoners. They were data. Commander Harlan spoke over comms, cold and clear. No hostages, no negotiations. Finish the job. So we did. We moved deck by deck, floor by floor. I remember the eyes of the conglomerate officers. Not rage, not fear, confusion. Like they couldn't understand why their walls were falling. Like they didn't believe humans were capable of this kind of precision, this kind of vengeance. But we were done explaining ourselves. I reached the central AI core first. 4 guards, 1 drone sentry. I didn't pause. 2 bursts from my rail cannon cored through the guards. A plasma blade silenced the drone. I breached the core's housing, pulled the failsafe triggers, and rigged the place to melt from the inside out. And then I spoke into the open channel. Their open channel. I wanted them to hear it. This is Earth's answer. You were warned. You laughed. You shouldn't have. The explosion shattered the ship's spine. We evacuated in silence. Behind us, the ardent valor split in half and burned into Virex's upper atmosphere. 200,000 tons of command and control, gone. News of the destruction spread fast. Conglomerate systems flickered with panic. Civilian broadcasts in the outer rim caught footage of the Valor falling, its remains lighting up the night like judgment. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was afraid of Earth again. They tried to retaliate, of course. That was always the plan. Within 48 hours, 3 fleets launched towards the Sol system, heavily armed. Arrogant again, thinking they'd catch Earth scrambling, unprepared, exposed after such a bold first strike. But they didn't know what we'd done underground, what we'd buried in the crust, what we'd built beneath the cities they thought were soft. The first fleet entered Neptune's orbit. They never made it past the Kuiper line. Earth's automated orbital cannons, the sky teeth, activated without warning. Thousands of kinetic rods fell from orbit like steel rain. One fleet commander tried to deploy flares. Didn't matter. The rods weren't aimed at ships. They were aimed at space itself, disrupting local gravity, collapsing their fold cores mid-jump. They tore themselves apart before they ever saw Earth. The second fleet tried to reroute, so we jammed their comms, fed them false coordinates, and guided them into a dormant asteroid field Earth had mined with antimatter. They blinked in. They didn't blink out. The third fleet reached Mars orbit. That's when Earth released Unit 13. Nobody knew what it was. Some thought it was AI. Others said it was a bioengineered monster grown in silence. All we know is that it launched from a deep sea vault in the Pacific, climbed into orbit, and ripped through the enemy fleet like a reaper made of bone and metal. Survivors called it the Howl. Their last transmission? Just one word. Run. Back on the Hezekiah, I watched the galaxy change. Broadcasts from allied species started pouring in. Cautious greetings, apologies, requests for meetings. They saw what we were now. Not diplomats, not victims, not primitives, predators. But it wasn't enough. Because there was one system left, the conglomerate core, the bureaucratic heart of their empire. The place where Earth was once mocked, once dismissed, once humiliated. Commander Harlan summoned us all that evening. The ops room was dim, the air heavy. He stood at the center, armor still scorched from Virex, eyes like stone. They took our children, our colonies, our sovereignty. We gave them warnings. We gave them mercy. He paused, looked us each in the eye. Now we give them hell. The final operation was greenlit that night. Operation Final Silence. Our mission? Infiltrate the conglomerate core. Disable their central council. Not with bombs, not with ships, but with truth. Because Earth had something else we'd kept hidden. Something worse than weapons. I hadn't slept in 32 hours. Not properly. Not the kind of sleep that matters. When you're wrapped in vengeance, rest becomes a weakness. Sleep gets replaced with something else. A dull, buzzing awareness, like your mind's always leaning over the edge of violence, waiting for the signal to jump. And the signal came in the form of 5 words. Final silence is a go. That was it. No long speech, no grand send-off, just a flat declaration over encrypted channels, the kind you feel in your spine more than your ears. Earth wasn't seeking peace anymore. Not even revenge. This wasn't about wiping out fleets or sending a message. This was about erasing the disease at its source. The conglomerate core, 12 systems tangled together with trade routes, defense rings, and a population spread across 5 species. A knot of bureaucracy so thick that it had held the galaxy in check for 300 years. They called themselves preservers of order. We called them what they were, parasites. They fed off the weak, exploited lesser races, manipulated timelines and evolution behind the curtain, and wore smiles while stripping entire worlds of identity. They'd done it to the Kirill, the Lernak, the humans on Europa, and almost to us. Almost. That almost was about to become extinction. I was dropped onto the black site staging station known only as Stigma Base, floating just outside the gravitational field of a dying dwarf star. The place didn't exist in any galactic database. It had no beacon, no comms, and the kind of shielding that made it vanish from radar. This was where Earth hid its monsters. The squad they put together for Operation Final Silence wasn't made of soldiers, not really. We were leftovers, the kind of men who saw too much, lost too much, or did too much. I walked into that steel chamber, and every man in there had eyes like cracked stone. No joy, no anger, just cold memory. Harlan was there, of course. He'd never leave a mission like this to chance. Next to him was Kane, former orbital assassin, discharged after he collapsed a peace summit with a micro-nuke to kill one target. Then Ramirez, Earth's first synthetic organic hybrid, half machine and all muscle, banned from public ops because he couldn't stop smiling when he killed. And me, Aaron Teller. Call sign, Ash. Ex-recon, dishonorably discharged, reactivated under Clause 17B. The clause you never hear about unless Earth decides morality is a luxury. They called us the Choir. Ironic, since none of us had anything left to sing about. Harlan outlined the op in 3 layers. 1. Get in. Through a stolen diplomatic vessel, once used by Earth's final ambassador before he was vaporized for insubordination. The ship still had its conglomerate codes, outdated, but functional long enough to land on core platform Theta. 2. Disable the core broadcast network. The real power of the conglomerate wasn't military, it was control. They used the network to rewrite history, fake uprisings, fake peace, fake genocide. They controlled narrative like a drug. Cut that signal, and suddenly, the galaxy remembers what they forgot. 3. Leak the black logs. A data package Earth had been collecting for 40 years. Every atrocity, every cover-up, every experiment, every betrayal, every species they bled dry. Every child they turned into a test subject. Proof. Pure, undeniable proof. It wouldn't just break their power. It would make them radioactive to every ally they had. Harlan looked around that chamber, the low blue glow of emergency lights casting shadows over his weathered face. "We don't need to kill them all," he said. "We just need to make the galaxy see them for what they are. They'll tear themselves apart after that." And we believed him. The journey in was smoother than expected. The diplomatic codes held just long enough to bring us into Theta's landing corridor. The place was a marvel of technology. Orbital towers stretching down from massive floating cities, connected by glimmering rings of solar collectors. Clean, pristine, controlled, like a lie painted in light. We walked through security dressed like delegates, cloaks, diplomatic seals, even the fake implants they used to monitor compliance. I felt naked without my rail cannon, but we couldn't trigger suspicion yet. Kane smuggled in a neural disruptor in his spinal brace. Ramirez had nanoblades in his forearms. Me? I had a virus in my molar, a full AI payload compressed into a tooth, ready to breach the core net when I bit down. At exactly 0400 hours, we reached the internal transmission hub. That's when things got loud. Kane dropped the first guard with a throat spike. Ramirez gutted the next two before they could blink. I jammed the neural lock into the mainframe and bit down hard. The virus roared to life. Alarms screamed. Lights died. All over Core Theta, truth began to bleed through the lies. The black logs were worse than I remembered. As the data streamed through the hijacked network, I saw glimpses, images, video feeds, classified reports, children being dissected, entire species sterilized in the name of population control, mating pairs of allied aliens reduced to genetic raw material, a Lernak priestess raped publicly as punishment for resisting integration, a human resistance leader's execution staged as suicide. Every race watching across the galaxy saw it all, live, unedited. The conglomerate tried to kill the feed, but we had already rerouted it through 7 civilian networks, 6 pirate stations, and 1 rogue Kyril monk who hated the Council more than we did. The truth flooded out, uncontrollable, irreversible, and suddenly, the core burned. Civil unrest spread through the station in minutes. Delegates ran. Security turned on itself. Officers who'd spent their lives enforcing silence now screamed for mercy. We didn't give it. We fought our way toward the heart of the station, the Council Spire, a tower of glass and arrogance reaching above the clouds of Core Theta. That's where the 12 were. The ones who had signed our extermination orders. The ones who laughed when Earth pleaded for restraint. They tried to evacuate. We shot down their shuttles. We reached the Council chamber at 0540 hours. Ramirez was already leaking oil and blood from a plasma burn to the chest. Kane had taken a stun blast to the spine, but still limped forward like a ghost. Harlan's visor was cracked, half his face burnt raw. Me? I was breathing fire. The 12 sat there, still in their robes, pretending they had power. One of them, some bloated, slug-like being named Selvarin, tried to negotiate. He raised one slimy hand. "Please, we didn't know—" I shot him through the mouth before he could finish. The others cried, begged. They weren't monsters anymore, just cowards. We made them watch the last of the logs play, forced them to see the worlds they destroyed, the lives they crushed, the lies they built their empire on. And then, when they wept, we left them alive. Because death would have been too easy. We wired the chamber with explosives, but left the failsafe in their own hands. One button. They could choose, erase themselves, or face the galaxy they betrayed. As we evacuated, I looked back once. They didn't press the button, which meant the galaxy would. Outside, Core Theta was in chaos. Riots, fires, ships exploding mid-launch, civilian fleets abandoning orbit. The conglomerate navy turned on itself, human allies attacking alien commanders, Lernak officers defecting mid-flight, entire squadrons vanishing. And the feed kept playing. Across 1,000 worlds, beings of every race watched what Earth had uncovered. And something deep, primal, and ancient took root again. Fear. Not fear of Earth's weapons, but fear of our memory, of what we'd kept, of what we'd never forget. We rendezvoused with the Hezekiah near the collapsed rings of Theta. Harlan was the last aboard. His armor cracked, his breath shallow. He sat down across from me, pulled off his helmet, and let out the quietest laugh I'd ever heard. They should have listened. That was all he said. The galaxy would never be the same. Earth didn't just win. We rewrote the order of things. And this time, we weren't going to play nice. They always said truth brings peace, that once the galaxy knew, everything would fall into place, justice would bloom, and order would return. But that's not what happened. Not even close. The truth didn't bring peace. It brought war. It's easy to blame monsters when you don't know them. It's easier to live under tyranny when you don't see the blood. But the black logs ripped every layer of comfort and ignorance from every corner of the galaxy. And once you show people the bones in their own backyard, they don't want justice. They want revenge. The conglomerate was dying. Everyone could see that. But what no one saw coming was what happened next. They didn't collapse. They didn't surrender. They turned on each other. The core burned, but not from Earth's fire, from within. Selvaron's own species, the Ixari, declared him a traitor to biological life. They executed every member of their race who ever held office in the Council. Whole bloodlines gone in hours. The Lernak homeworld fell into civil war, their factions arguing over who helped the conglomerate more, and who should pay for it now. And the Kirill, those tall-eyed priests once seen as spiritual guides, suddenly broadcasted mass confessions of crimes committed under conglomerate blessing. The galaxy wanted to forget. But Earth made sure they couldn't. We didn't pull the truth back. We amplified it, looped the worst of it on an endless feed, sent it across wormhole relays, translated it into every dialect known. The feed didn't show heroes. It showed victims, and it showed faces. Not statistics, not politics, children, parents. Entire cultures dissected, traded, vaporized in labs, replaced with obedient copies. You can't forget a face. And that was the point. We thought that would be enough. That with the conglomerate exposed and fractured, Earth could step back, focus on rebuilding, healing. But something had shifted. In the galaxy, and in us. We didn't just win the war, we changed the rules. And once you do that, no one wants to go back to the old game. Especially not us. I returned to Earth 3 weeks after final silence, or what was left of it. It was quieter now. Not dead, just waiting. Cities still stood, but everything felt temporary, like humanity wasn't meant to stay anymore. The orbital towers still blinked with blue light. The defense nets still hovered in perfect formation. But the streets were emptier. The noise was gone. The distractions. The politics. What replaced them was purpose. Every factory on Earth ran at full tilt, not making luxury, not making consumer tech. They were building fleets, suits, drones, defense towers, terraform rigs, AI command cores. Not for survival, for expansion. I sat at a cafe on the lower deck of New Athens, sipping recycled caffeine, staring up at a news feed playing above the promenade. The Lernak exodus continues. Over 80 million refugees seek entry into Earth-allied territory. New human command center established on former Ixari trading planet. Local militias support transition. Unrest in Outer Rim. Human mercenaries offer security in exchange for planetary rights. We didn't plan to be an empire, but power doesn't sit still. And when the galaxy saw that Earth could destroy without remorse and reveal the rot in their gods, they didn't fear us. They started to depend on us. I met Harlan again that night. He was waiting on the ridge above the Amazon crater, the old one. The scar left from the conglomerate's first orbital test back in 2187. He looked older, leaner, like all the war had finally caught up to his bones. He didn't say hello. He just handed me a data slate. It's happening again. The screen flicked on. A grainy vid feed, probably intercepted, probably not meant for us. 2 alien children. Caged. Experiments in progress. Human scientists, Earth uniforms. I felt something cold move behind my ribs. Where? I asked. Out in Lerna. One of the fringe colonies? They said they were studying biological adaptation for refugees. I wanted to look away. I wanted to think it was fake, but it wasn't. We weren't the same anymore. Some of us remembered why we fought, but others? They just learned how to win. The worst part wasn't the cage. It was the look in that scientist's eyes. The same one I saw in the conglomerate vids. Clinical, detached, as if these kids were data points, not living things. We said we were different, I muttered. Harlan nodded. We were, until we weren't. We sat there in silence for a long time, watching Earth from above, its scars glowing faint under the stars. What do we do? I finally asked. The same thing we did last time, he said. We warned them. We launched Operation Emberfall 3 days later, unauthorized, unsanctioned, off the books, because the rot had found its way into us. There's no greater threat than your own reflection, especially when it thinks it's justified. I reassembled what was left of the choir. Ramirez was gone. He didn't survive his injuries. Kane had vanished after Theta. Some said he went to live among the Lurnak tribes. Others said he never made it off-world. But others came. New ones. Soldiers who knew what the war had cost, who didn't want to become the next version of what we'd just destroyed. We hit the Lerna facility hard. No warnings, no negotiations. We breached the outer perimeter under the cover of a false refugee broadcast. They opened the gates thinking we were bringing more subjects. Instead, we brought judgment. 17 dead. 4 captured. Data wiped. Labs burned. Children freed. We didn't take prisoners. The ones who tried to run were shot in the back. No hesitation. When the flames were high enough to be seen from orbit, I left one thing behind. A message etched into the wall of the main chamber. We warned you. It's a strange thing, vengeance. At first it feels like justice. Then it feels like power. But if you're not careful, it starts to feel like purpose, and that's when you lose your soul. We thought we were the cure, but maybe we were just a new strain of the virus. Earth hadn't changed, not really. We were still human, still capable of the same horrors. But the difference now? No one could stop us. And that's when you start becoming the thing you swore to destroy. You always think the monster is on the other side of the door. But the real terror? It's when you look in the mirror and realize it's your face staring back. After Lerna, Earth should have paused, reflected, recalibrated something. But it didn't. It doubled down. The operation was never supposed to go public. Emberfall was buried before it even hit internal logs. But someone leaked the footage, shaky cam shots of children being carried from cages, guards being executed, labs on fire. The worst part? It wasn't the outrage. It was the approval. The vid went viral across EarthNet. Comments poured in like acid. They had it coming. Collateral damage, worth it. If they're not with us, they're against us. Finally, Earth is taking control. And there it was. The rot had spread. Not just through government, not just military, through the people. They didn't just forgive the brutality, they wanted more of it. The Earth Union, that toothless diplomatic body that once kept politicians in check, passed the War Reconstruction Expansion Bill within 48 hours of the leak. It granted full tactical authority to Earth's new Strategic Dominion Command. That wasn't the name we chose, that was the name they gave it, like they weren't even pretending anymore. And who was the new head of Strategic Dominion? General Emmerich Holt, ex-Blacksite officer, once discharged for war crimes during the Europa crisis. Now, suddenly, a hero of human survival. I knew Holt, fought under him once. He didn't see people. He saw pieces, tools, meat with assignments, and now he had the keys to humanity's future. I was called back into service under direct order, not an invitation, a summons. The new command structure didn't care about autonomy or consent. The message simply read, "Report to Outpost Seraphim, immediate deployment, assigned unit, Dominus Fangs." The Dominus Fangs weren't a unit. They were a message. Earth's new First Strike Battalion, clean armor, no names, no voices, conditioned, not trained, genetically enhanced but legally dead on paper, and they wanted me to lead them. I walked into Seraphim, and the place smelled like sterilized war. Fresh paint over steel, synthetic air, boots that had never touched real soil. My quarters were clean. Too clean. The kind of clean you get when the walls are afraid to remember what happened inside them. Harlan tried to warn me. He reached me through a ghost channel, hidden in the backlogs of a service drone that accidentally passed through my corridor. The message was short, rough. "You don't lead them, Aaron. You release them. They don't follow orders. They follow protocols. And the protocol is dominate. If they send you to a planet, they don't want allies. They want ownership. Walk away. Or bleed for someone else's lie." I didn't walk. I ran, not literally, not outwardly, but in my head, I began planning my exit. Because if Earth was becoming what we swore to fight, then someone had to stop it, even if that meant shooting our own flag in the face. My first assignment with the Dominus Fangs was the Chiral Enclave on J-17. A peaceful outpost. One of the few species that still trusted Earth enough to sign a mutual defense treaty. Their only mistake? They refused to allow Earth's military to install monitoring infrastructure inside their temple cities. They thought the treaty protected them. It didn't. We were told the Chiral were harboring traitors, that rogue Ixari agents were hiding among them, that there was chatter of an uprising. None of it was true. There was no uprising. No weapons. No threat. Just a proud, quiet race who'd seen their stars burn once and didn't want to see it again. So Earth did what it does now. It sent us. The drop was brutal, not from enemy fire, but from the rage I felt pressing against my chest. Rage I had to swallow, anger I couldn't show. The Dominus Fangs didn't blink. They landed spread out, swept through the village like a virus in armor. Doors kicked in, families dragged out, data cores seized, priests beaten for resistance. When the elder demanded to speak with me, I tried to de-escalate. "We've done nothing wrong," he said, voice shaking. "You are guests in our home." I told him to stay calm. I told him to trust me. He did. 2 minutes later, one of the Fangs executed him with a spinal spike, justified it as latent hostility. I snapped, grabbed the soldier, slammed him into the wall, screamed in his face. But he didn't react. Not fear, not confusion, just cold programming. "Violation of Protocol 9. Disruption of execution cycle," he stated. "Further resistance will be met with termination." I looked at the squad. And I knew then I wasn't leading anything. I was the leash they stopped pretending to hold. That night, I made a choice. I pulled my hidden beacon from its compartment, the one piece of tech not registered to my new loadout. It was old EarthNet, pre-protocol, analog coded, not traceable. I pinged Harlan. "I'm done. Pull me out, or I burn this whole place down with them inside." The reply came faster than I expected. "Extraction window in 19 hours. Bring proof. The galaxy's watching again." Proof wasn't hard to find. The Fangs didn't hide what they did. They recorded it, bragged about it. Uploaded it to internal feeds as efficiency logs. I found a data cube with footage of a Chiral child, maybe 8, 9, being interrogated under sensory isolation. 37 minutes. The kid didn't break. Didn't cry, but the logs showed the soldier marking it as non-cooperative hostile. And then the screen went red. Cleansing protocol applied. The child vanished from the feed. I uploaded it all, to the underground networks, the pirate channels, the last few corners of the galaxy that still gave a damn. Didn't matter if I made it out alive. Earth had to bleed for this. I almost didn't make it to the evac zone. The fangs caught on fast. Their internal sensors flagged my unauthorized transmission. One by one, they peeled off patrols, locked me in a perimeter. I ran through temple corridors, dripping with blood. Chiral bodies left where they fell. Priests shot during prayer. Infants crushed beneath the rubble of structural enforcement. This wasn't war. This was a message, and I wasn't sure who it was meant for anymore. The evac ship came down fast, dirty, unmarked. Harlan was at the helm, one eye gone. New scars, but alive, and still fighting. I collapsed into the hull, covered in soot and blood and guilt. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he handed me a canteen. You did what most wouldn't. I laughed. Or maybe cried. I'm still not sure. I was supposed to be the monster. You were, he said softly, until you decided to kill it instead. That night, the footage went live. Again. The galaxy held its breath. Earth's supporters, the ones still clinging to the illusion of justice, went silent. And on dozens of planets, flags bearing Earth's sigil were torn down and burned. We warned them, but now we had to warn ourselves, because we didn't just defeat the conglomerate, we replaced them, and if we weren't careful, we'd become worse. Because monsters born from pain don't build peace, they conquer. I once believed fear was enough, that when the galaxy finally saw what Earth could do, when we showed our teeth, burned their fleets, broadcast their crimes, they'd fall in line. And they did, at first. But fear only works when it fills a vacuum, when there's no one left willing to stand up. And we should have known better. The galaxy is big, bigger than our rage, bigger than our grief. Somewhere out in the dark, someone was always watching, waiting, preparing, not to save the galaxy from us, but to take it from both of us. It started with a whisper. A mining colony in the Voidwell expanse went dark. No distress signal, no explosion, just gone. 17,000 lives, erased. At first, Earth Command blamed it on ex-conglomerate rebels, or pirates. The usual excuses. That's how Holt operates. Deny, distract, suppress. But then it happened again. A Chiral listening post on the edge of the Typhon belt. Armed, shielded, hardened to withstand anything short of a planetary strike. No signs of a breach, no battle. Just cold, empty silence. By the third disappearance, they couldn't keep it off the grid. That's when the stories started. Whispers passed through shattered colonies and underground networks. People began calling them the Echo, because the only thing left behind was sound. A low, endless tone. Not a signal, not language, just resonance. Like something impossibly old was humming its arrival across the stars. Harlan brought it to me in person. We met inside the skeleton of a half-built cruiser drifting above Earth's moon. Hull exposed, no gravity, just steel beams and vacuum and the sound of our own breathing. He floated the recorder between us. We pulled this from the ruins of Arcos 7, he said. Only thing left intact. He hit play. At first it was just static. Then the sound came. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't digital. It was alive. A tone that made my teeth ache and my brain feel like it was unraveling. It shifted frequency every few seconds, almost like it was learning how to breathe. Then a voice. Not a human one, not even close. It didn't speak in words. It didn't need to. It felt like a voice. like it crawled under your skin and whispered directly into your blood. I didn't understand the message, but my body reacted before my brain could. I vomited. Right there, in 0G. Floating chunks, shame burning my face. Harlan didn't judge. He looked pale, too. "We've decoded parts of it," he said. "It's not a warning." "What is it then?" "A reminder." I stared at him, throat dry. "Of what?" He didn't answer right away, just handed me a new data chip, labeled with one word, Remnant. The Remnant weren't in any galactic database. No diplomatic records, no war logs, no myths, nothing, which meant they either never existed, or they existed so far back, everyone forgot. Until now. Earth's top analysts, the black site kind no one ever hears about, broke their silence after 2 weeks of complete radio blackout. Their conclusion? The Remnant are not new, they are returning. And worse. They were here before the conglomerate, before the Kirill, before recorded sentience. They weren't conquerors. They were the ones who came after the fall. Scavengers of broken civilizations, cleaners of rot. They didn't fight wars. They waited for collapse, then picked the bones clean. The recordings from later colonies were worse, not visual, just audio, always the same tone, always escalating in frequency until it cracked every sensor. And then, silence. When they finally recovered a body, a Kirill scout, it was perfect. No wounds, no trauma, not even fear on his face, but his brain was gone. Not removed, not damaged, erased. Every neuron hollow. Like the memory of life had been deleted, molecule by molecule. We weren't fighting a species. We were fighting an idea. Something so old and patient it didn't need to destroy us physically. It just needed us to keep becoming what it wanted us to be. Broken, fragmented, arrogant, distracted. Sound familiar? Holt didn't believe any of it. Of course he didn't. He called it psychological warfare. Claimed rebels were using synthetic resonance tones to destabilize command, pushed more troops into fringe systems, activated full-spectrum propaganda on EarthNet to keep morale high. I confronted him at the Bastion Summit, the first time we'd seen each other since my discharge. He didn't even flinch when I brought up the echo. "Fear is a tool," he said. "You should remember that. We used it well against the conglomerate." "This isn't the conglomerate." "No, this is your imagination, or worse, your guilt." "They're real, Holt." He leaned forward, voice quiet but sharp. "Even if they are, let them come." "You think we can beat them?" He smirked. "We already beat a galaxy. What's one more enemy?" That's when I knew. Holt wasn't afraid, because he wanted the fight. He wanted an enemy so terrifying it would justify turning Earth into something even darker. He needed them, and they needed him. A week later, they hit Alcar's Drift. Population, 1.2 million. A mix of species, Earth-aligned. No military presence. They found the station intact. No signs of a breach. All systems functional. Except the people were wrong. Some were sitting in chairs, others lying in beds. Some standing mid-step, eyes open, breathing, but completely empty. Every last one. Scans showed no neural activity, not even base reflexes. It was like their minds had been unplugged. We called them hollows. I asked Harlan one night, as we drifted above a burning refugee ship in orbit, what he thought the Remnant wanted. He didn't answer right away. He stared out the viewport, watching the flames lick across the void. Then finally, "I don't think they want anything." "What do you mean?" "I think they're cleansing, not out of cruelty, out of design. They don't kill, they correct." I frowned. "Correct what?" He looked at me then, eyes tired and red. "Civilizations that stop being civilizations." "So why now?" "Because Earth became the infection, and the galaxy caught it." The Remnant didn't care about borders, didn't care about race. They weren't targeting enemies. They were targeting patterns, violence, control, suppression, empire. We gave them everything they needed. We did the heavy lifting, broke alliances, sowed chaos, pushed the entire galaxy into fear and division. And when we were weak, proud, and blind, they came back. The final report from the Alcar site came in encrypted through Black Channel. Only a handful of us had access. The last line froze me. Remnant signal confirmed inside Earth orbit. Low-band frequency detected under Pacific Ocean Trench. Possible preceded architecture. Preceded. Not just visiting, not invading. Already here. So now we sit on the edge again. Not of dominance, not of power, but of obliteration. Not by fire, not by bombs, but by something worse, irrelevance. Because the Remnant don't hate us. They've seen us before. We're just another failed version of something they've erased 1,000 times. And now, we're next. There's a point in every war where you stop fighting to win. You fight because you don't know how to stop, because surrender feels worse than death, because silence feels like defeat. Earth had reached that point, but the enemy we were up against now. They didn't care about our noise. They didn't want our surrender. They wanted our absence. And yet we still thought we could beat them. Still thought if we just struck hard enough, deep enough, we could scare the galaxy back into place, scare the Remnant back into the shadows. It was Harlan who said it first. We're not playing chess anymore. We're trying to arm wrestle a god. But General Holt? He wasn't listening. The Remnant's presence under the Pacific Trench changed everything. Not just because they were here, not just because they'd been here, but because of what Earth decided to do about it. We called it Project Leviathan. Yeah, real subtle. A planetary bore strike, a weapon capable of punching through Earth's own crust down into the oceanic trench and detonating a payload so powerful it could rattle the planet's core. Built in secret under the guise of seismic research. Controlled by an AI that made decisions faster than any human could react. It wasn't designed for war. It was designed for erasure. The thinking was simple. If something ancient was buried under Earth, something watching, listening, waiting, we could kill it before it rose. Problem was, it might not be the only thing that died. Harlan called me at 300 hours, encrypted, ghost channel. Again. His voice was tense. They're lighting it. The Leviathan's primed. Holt gave the green light. I didn't respond right away. I was in low orbit, aboard the Iron Spire, a converted defense ship now running black site recon. My orders were classified, but I already knew what they meant. Observation, containment, suppression of panic. He's actually doing it? I said. Launch is in 14 hours. Once the core arms, there's no override. What's the blast radius? Worse than you think. If it breaches the mantle, it's not just Earth. The orbital grids, the moon installations, the tides, hell, even Mars gets scorched. He's willing to risk everything? Harlan's silence answered that for me. I watched the footage live. The Leviathan looked like a beast, a drill the size of a skyscraper, mounted to a submersible rig off the Mariana Shelf. Black and ugly and humming with energy. 3 Earth carriers hovered above it, armed to the teeth, ready to intercept anything that moved. Not just Remnant. Us, too. I knew what Holt was doing. He was gambling the future of humanity on one strike, because if the Remnant didn't die in that trench, then at least we'd send a message. Humanity doesn't beg. Humanity kills. But he wasn't thinking clearly. He'd built himself into a corner, surrounded by yes-men, guarded by protocol, drowning in his own legacy. And now? He was ready to burn the world just to light his name in the dark. I got planetside through a compromised carrier. A sympathetic officer owed Harlan a favor. 1 shuttle, 1 chance. My objective, infiltrate the Leviathan's control rig and abort the launch. But there was no abort switch, only a fail-safe, and it wasn't built for escape. I touched down at 1200 hours. Rain hammered the ocean like bullets. The sea was boiling, literally. Temperatures had risen by 40 degrees over the trench. Pressure spikes, volcanic rumbles. Something down there was waking up. The control deck was sealed, heavily guarded. But Harlan had a back door, a maintenance shaft under the deck, lined with coolant pipes and heat-resistant foam. I crawled through darkness for 200 meters, breathing recycled air and sweat and the stench of dying salt water. When I reached the core, I saw it. The reactor was already spinning. Red lights pulsing. Counter ticking down from Oro 138 Zoom. Inside the control chamber stood 2 officers and 1 AI engineer. I raised my rifle. Not to kill. Not yet. "Stand down," I barked. "This is a black override order. Tactical abort." One officer blinked. The other didn't move. The engineer looked scared. "There is no abort," she said quietly. "What about manual failsafe?" "You'd have to trigger it from inside the bore chamber." "Survivability?" 0. I looked at the counter again. A 13641. Then the lights flickered. All of them. The entire platform vibrated. A low hum, deep and primal, passed through the floor like a voice without words. And then it came. A new tone. Not like the others. Not an echo. Not a threat. This was language, direct, pure, broadcasted through every frequency, heard in every head. "You are not the first. You will not be the last. This is not retribution. This is removal." The engineer dropped to her knees, screaming. The officers clutched their heads, bleeding from the ears. And me? I just stood there, feeling the weight of it. Not fear, not pain. Shame. Because I knew in that moment. They weren't angry. They were disappointed. I made the choice. I stepped into the bore chamber, past the heat warnings, past the radiation alarms. Every sensor screamed, every bone in my body wanted to turn back. But I didn't. Because someone had to be the end of this. Someone had to say, "No more." The core thrummed inches from my face, pulsing with death. I opened the failsafe panel, exposed the manual override. Final check. Warning, full core discharge imminent. Fatality certain. I smiled, because maybe this was what we needed. Not a weapon, not a war, a sacrifice. I punched the failsafe. Everything went white, then black, then I woke up on a beach, warm sand, salt in the air. For a second I thought I was dead. But then I saw the sky. Not Earth's, twin suns, pale clouds, a world I'd never seen, and someone was sitting next to me, tall, not human, eyes like void glass. Skin shimmered like liquid iron. They looked at me, not unkindly, just ancient. And they spoke, not with a voice, but with presence. "You are the first who tried to stop themselves. You are the first who remembered what it means to choose. The Leviathan sleeps again, because you chose silence over fire. But the others will not. You must return, warn them, or become the very echo you feared." I woke up again. This time on a medical cot, back aboard the Iron Spire. Harlan was there, smiling, tired, older. "You did it," he whispered. I tried to speak, failed. My voice was gone. He handed me a datapad, one line blinking. Leviathan deactivated. Global impact, 0. And then another message. Unknown planetary object detected in deep void, approaching at fold-resistant trajectory. Not remnant, not Earth. Something new. Or maybe something even older, because in the dark, something had noticed our choice. And now, the real reckoning begins. The final days didn't look like war. There was no screaming in the skies, no invasion fleets blotting out stars, no missiles, no monsters, no glory. It started with silence. Again. But not the kind Earth controlled. This was the silence of being observed, like the galaxy had paused, holding its breath, waiting for us to decide who we really were. It had been 2 weeks since I aborted the Leviathan, since I woke up on that impossible beach, since the voice, whatever it was, chose to send me back. Not destroy me, not reward me, just send me back with one purpose. Warn them. But warn them of what? The remnant weren't like us. They weren't evil. They weren't even interested in conquest. They were cleaners. Janitors of a galaxy that kept building empires out of blood and hubris. And now they'd come to Earth, not to fight us, but to judge. And judgment had already begun. Global sensors began picking up anomalies across the Sol system. Fold space, usually stable, was crumbling, not collapsing, but interfering with itself, like something vast was warping physics simply by existing nearby. Every telescope in the outer ring focused outward. Every AI ran simulations, and they all came to the same answer. An object was approaching, not fast, but inevitably. They called it the arc shade, a mass larger than Jupiter. No heat signature, no emissions, no structure, just void, not a planet, not a ship, just presence, and it was headed straight for us. ETA, 72 hours. General Holt, of course, responded the way he always had. Panic masked as power. The entire orbital fleet was mobilized. Every cannon, every railgun, every defense protocol. He activated the final Bastion directive. Earth's last resort protocol authorizing full use of black hole-based weapons, kinetic extinction payloads, and nanite swarms. "If it bleeds," he said on a broadcast, "we'll bury it." But this wasn't something that bled. This was something that waited, and it wasn't alone. On the second day, 3 stars blinked out in unison in the Orion arm. Not exploded, just erased. No radiation, no trace, gone. And then EarthNet went dark. Not because of an attack, but because our own systems refused to process the data. The AI cores collapsed themselves. Not from fear, from recognition. Whatever was coming had been written into the foundation of the universe. Not as a god, but as a reset. Harlan and I stood on the top deck of the Iron Spire, watching the black shape grow in the sky. It wasn't visible to the naked eye, but we could feel it. The stars around it shimmered like they were trying to get away. "Do we shoot?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a battered old data pad, the same one he'd used during the war. He handed it to me. "On the screen, there is one more way. A frequency, low, subspace, not built to attack, built to respond, to speak. It was called the Legacy Signal, a prototype from before the conglomerate days. Rumors said it was encoded by the first human deep mind philosophers, a signal not made to command, but to confess. A message of regret, of awareness, of acceptance. We didn't even know if it worked. But what else did we have? I broadcasted it. Not from Earth. From a floating relay between Mars and Jupiter, one tone, no words, no threat, no pride, just humility, just truth. We are flawed, we hurt, we fought. We tried to fix it, we failed, but we saw it. We know now. We want to be more. And the Arcshade stopped, not like a ship breaking, not like an enemy reconsidering. It paused, and then it spoke, but not in words, in vision. Every being across the galaxy, every race, every species, every mind saw the same image, a mirror, just a mirror, floating in the black. But what we saw in that mirror wasn't our face. It was the version of ourselves we'd become if no one stopped us. Earth as a machine, a reaper, a virus in a uniform of flags and steel, a planetless empire roaming the stars, turning everything into itself. It wasn't a warning. It was a preview, and then the mirror shattered. And for the first time, the Arcshade changed direction. It didn't leave. Not yet. But it turned away from Earth, floating slowly toward the conglomerate ruins in the outer spiral. That day became known as the Day of the Mirror. No one celebrated. There were no parades, no speeches, just silence. The kind that meant something was over. Or something was beginning. Earth fell quiet in the days after. Not from fear, but from shame. Factories paused. Fleets stood down. Broadcasts returned to old music, old stories. People began talking again, not shouting, talking. And that was when the message came. From the Kirill, the Lernak, even the Ixari, what was left of them. They asked Earth a single question. Do you still want to lead? And for the first time in human history, we said no. We didn't want to lead. We wanted to walk beside. The Galactic Union, rebuilt from the ashes of war, was formed 6 months later. Earth was not at the head. We were not its center. We were just a part of it, like everyone else, one voice among many, no louder, no softer. And for us, that was the victory. Not the burning fleets, not the surrendered planets, not the dead empires, but the day we finally shut up and listened. Holt disappeared, of course, took a black ops ship and ran. Some say he lives in the Voidwell expanse, still plotting, still waiting, still thinking war is the only truth. But I don't worry about him anymore, because if he ever returns, he won't find an empire. He'll find a world finally willing to be small again. Harlan passed away 2 years later. Peacefully, in a cabin on Europa's green zone, under a synthetic sky. I scattered his ashes above the trench where the Leviathan had slept. He once told me that Earth's greatest weapon wasn't its fury, it was its capacity for change, and that's what saved us. Not force, humility. As for me, I teach now. At a small station orbiting Titan. I don't wear the uniform. I don't talk about the war. But I show my students one thing. A cracked mirror. Kept in a pressure-sealed vault. Just in case we ever forget what we almost became. Because Earth warned them, and the galaxy didn't listen. But in the end, we did, and that made all the difference. The end. But maybe the beginning of something better.